everyone, and welcome to Gadgettes, a video podcast from Gizmodo. And that's right, I did say video. We do have some news for you this week, but before that, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves as always. I am your Deputy Consumer Tech Editor, Michelle Earhart, and joining me today is my co-host,
Tamagotchi expert, Florence Ion. Hey, everybody.
and
That's
we
my
are
new role here at Gizmodo.
Hi, everyone. What's good, Internet? And we are here to womansplain to you the latest in gadgets and technology. But before that, we have a point of order. You might have realized we've been doing video for the past few weeks, and so far the response to it has been really nice and positive. So going forward, we are going to focus on video. Which means we won't be doing the audio version of the podcast, but what it does mean is that you'll be able to see our lovely faces more often. We're going to be uploading more full episodes. We're still going to be uploading clips to the site, and you can catch Gadgettes at gizmodo.com as well as on our YouTube channel. But like Apple, we're being brave and cutting the audio jack from our podcast. Speaking of Apple,
Good
though,
one,
our
Michelle.
topic for this week, thank you. Our topic for this week is WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, because they just dominated the news cycle all Monday with their keynote. And given how slow news has kind of been for the rest of the week, they might keep dominating the cycle for the rest of the week. So they are the thing to talk about today. So what did you think of this year's WWDC, Flo?
You know, I thought it was very well done. I thought it was very nicely structured. I had time to completely tune out the macOS portion of the keynote. And I was, we've got some really exciting stuff actually coming through the iOS and iPadOS pipeline. I think iPad owners in particular are going to be super excited over some of the new multitasking features coming through. The iPhone, I know there's I am going to snark a little bit today because
Okay.
as I was watching the WWDC keynote, well, in the past keynotes, I used to say to myself, Android had that already. But this year I found myself saying to myself, why doesn't Android have that? Why didn't Google
Oh.
make Material U a little bit to look like that? Especially when they were introducing the new lock screen, which we're going to get into soon. So I have thoughts. I have lots of thoughts on that.
Flo, are
portion.
you going to turn to the dark side?
No. I've always prided myself on being a dual platform kind of person. So I've got
Okay.
both the iPhone here in green, which is going away with my green screen. I love it. And I still have my raggedy little Android phone that I'm not going to tell you what model it is because I don't want to call anybody out. But
as someone who works at home on PC and then in the office on Mac, I think dual platform is the way to go. Let me actually make myself full screen real quick. Speaking of dual platform, I hope you can see I have a pride flag behind me. That's right. It's June, by the way, which is all the one joke I wanted to make. Is that in this house we support both Apple and Mac and also Android, which gets rid of the both in that sentence, but whatever. But Apple did talk about a lot at its WWDC. We wanted to have, speaking of that Mac that Flo tuned out, we wanted to have our honorary Dude Jet, Phil Tracy, on the podcast because he was at WWDC in person. He got to go hands-on with the new Mac. He was in the sun. It was nice. I talked to him. He did get to walk around Cupertino a little bit, so it wasn't all work. But we're letting him rest. He's been on a plane the past few days, there and back again. So we're going to talk about his experience with the new MacBook. And then we are also going to talk about the new watchOS in addition to Apple iOS and iPad. But before that, let's take a quick break. Well, Flo, it seems like you have a lot of opinions about the It's so strange, I know, right? But you have a lot of opinions about the new iOS announcements, and how that compares to Android. But before that, let's do a quick rundown of everything that was at WWDC. Starting with that iOS 16 update, that
Mhm.
iPad OS 16 update. Flo, you're the one who covered this for us. What did you notice here?
Well, so for iOS 16 in particular, I noticed just like a real buttoning up of the interface. And I mean, it makes sense. Like what Apple has going on right now is really working for people. I think it was last year that they introduced widgets. And so they're sort of building on top of that. They're allowing you to not only bring widgets to the lock screen, but to also fully customize the lock screen in some really neat ways. So you have I'm kind of looking at a picture of it right now, but you have different font types that you can use. You have lots of different integrations. If you want to do your Apple Health data on the lock screen, then you can have that without unlocking your phone completely. And side note, by the way, you won't need your Apple Watch to use Apple Health to track steps and exercises
Yes.
and things.
It's almost like
So
they realized that the iPhone has all those, gizmos in it already.
right. I will say, by the way, I never use those on my phone. I like to
Mhm.
have the watch metrics, but it is nice to have that as backup, just in case
It
you like
is.
forget your watch at home or something. Notifications are going to get a little more organized. I do think notifications is like the Achilles heel of both the Android and Apple platforms.
Mhm.
There is just there's no easy way to keep the maelstrom of just things popping up at you organized in any sort of way. So what Apple did is at least kept it so it's at the bottom part of the screen, so it's not covering like your beautiful wallpaper. If you have a
Mhm.
wallpaper of like your kids or your adorable cat, like that's who you want to see, not
That's what I have. It's actually
exactly.
interesting. We're gonna save most of our opinion stuff for the next segment here, but I was very pleased to see the new notification thing. What they're gonna do is they're gonna just put it
Mhm.
in like a little box that just takes up like a small rectangle on your lock screen, and then you can scroll through that box. I was really pleased because like I get a lot of emails as editor from PR companies and stuff, and like 80% of
And
them
me.
don't apply to me. So it's just like floods my lock screen with a bunch of like really overwhelming stuff that I don't need to see. But that's not everyone because our other technology editor, Blake Montgomery, when he heard that they were condensing the notifications, he was like, "What? No, I want to be able to just glance at my
That's
phone and see everything
interesting.
I need."
See, everybody uses their phones really differently. Oh, that's so I would love to we should survey all of our coworkers and see how everybody's habits kind of differentiate.
We should just
Uh,
do a Gadgettes documentary about iPhone opinions in the Gizmodo office.
I mean, if anybody would like to see that, please, you can write us at gadgets@gizmodo.com. That email.
Mhm.
Still waiting for your comments, questions, and
Nice
concerns.
plug.
Uh-huh. A couple other little things to know about iOS real quickly. Messages is getting some new collaborative features. And not only collaborative features, but the ability to edit a message after you send it and to mark threads as unread if you maybe need to go back to something a little bit later and, not miss the fact that it was bolded. This is one of the upsides of the whole iMessages messages infrastructure that Apple built is they can just control things server side and I am curious how this is going to work with Android in
Mhm.
terms of like retracting things. So that's going to be an interesting thing. Also, SharePlay is coming to messages. So you can like listen to music, you could watch something on Disney
Yeah.
Plus through like FaceTime if you want to.
You
So,
know what I
more
initially oh, gone, sorry.
well, I was just going to say more of that kind of like uh bringing family and friends together who are on a shared platform. So,
Yeah, when I initially saw that, I was like, "What a terrible way to watch a movie," just, like, all on my phone, constantly typing in the messages, but then I realized you can do messages on iPad. I think you can do messages on your Mac, so it's
mhm.
it's not a bad deal.
But I can also see teenagers, like, just hanging out in bed with their little iPhone, the only thing they're allowed that their parents have allowed them to have, just,
Mhm.
like, furiously watching something with a friend, so it's gonna happen. I think the teens are gonna love this. says me, an
Oh
old.
God. Is that what we are now? The kids are gonna love
I
it.
look at them
We
like
may
that
not
now. I
be
feel
ready for
bad.
it, but your kids are gonna love it. Okay.
I want to give you just two more quick little things, which is that we actually got a little smart home announcement as part of iOS
Mhm.
16. So, something to look forward to is when the Matter standard comes at the very end of this year, you'll be able to use your iPhone as sort of a hub, a smart hub to add things to your smart home. It'll be a HomeKit hub, essentially. I cannot wait to test this out personally. HomeKit is the one thing I've really wanted to like dive into. So, I think I'm gonna have to make some time for that. And lastly, something that people agree with me about is CarPlay.
Mhm.
CarPlay is getting an expansion. There's nothing concrete yet in terms of release date, just Apple teased that your iPhone is going to unlock this brand new multi-screen ability in your car. It's coming from car manufacturers next year, which are unannounced. So things to kind of like I wanna say look forward to, unless you're me, which I don't look forward to. We already know how I feel
Yeah,
about screens in the car.
we had our hot take about that a couple weeks. I don't know how hot it is. I was seeing some stuff on Twitter earlier today even about like screens in cars are dangerous. People looking at screens have a slower response than like people on marijuana, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to hear more about our feelings about screens in cars, please check out our
It's
gadgets from I
documented.
believe 2 weeks ago, right?
Exactly. Should we quickly go through iPadOS as well?
Let's quickly go through watchOS first because
Oh,
iPadOS
yeah!
and Mac actually do share a couple features. So I want to talk about that at the end. But before that, there was watchOS 9 is coming this fall, and there was some stuff announced. Nothing too super major, but there are larger screens on the new Apple Watches, and that means new watch faces. Our coworker, lovely coworker Andrew Lazuski, is still upset that he can't like fully customize his own watch face and share it with people. But Apple is putting out some new bespoke watch faces that take advantage of the Series 7's larger screen, including one that is like a lunar calendar, which is really nice. Apple's also
I
like
agree.
trying to do better workout metrics for runners, which they mentioned this when they said they're also putting the health app on the iPhone, um, which is that you move your arms up and down, you bob your body up and down as you run. It's not just like your wrist and stuff. So they're trying to get a better like view of your whole body motion, which is difficult to do just through your wrist, but Apple has a pretty good history of that. Better sleep tracking as well. I can't imagine wearing my watch to sleep. My boyfriend tried it for like a week after he got his Apple Watch for his birthday. It was really sweet. And then he's like, this is horribly uncomfortable. But the Apple Watch can now detect and measure different stages of sleep, including REM, core, deep sleep, whatever. So you can get a better idea, not just how long you slept and when you woke up, but your sleep quality as well. And then Apple Watch is going to be able to get medication reminders.
This
Uh,
one, this is what I want
mhm.
on my watch, right? My Galaxy Watch. I need this. You know how hard it is to find an app to help remind you about your medications.
I am so bad about putting my meds in my little like old person box that I
Me too.
have.
Mhm.
And I don't want to like you can buy drugstore like timer bottle caps for your meds. And I don't want to admit to that because I'm like, I just have my old person like day and night box. I should just use that. So
I
this
wanna
is
be
a good
organized, like, I wanna take it in my own hands, but
this is a good fallback for that. So you can tell your watch, hey, I took my meds here, and then your watch can be like, okay, now you won't forget that you took your meds this morning. You won't get a double dose, or you can say, at 2 p.m. every day, remind me to take that pill that I
Mhm,
have to take at the same time every day.
and if
You
I
know
don't
the
take it by
one.
4, get on my ass and tell me you need to take your meds, otherwise things are
Mhm.
gonna go south for you really soon.
And the other thing with this, not just medication reminders, but there's also going to be like notifications for like bad drug interactions in the watch as well. So you can tell the
That's
watch,
great.
hey, I take X medication and Y medication. And if those have a bad interaction, the watch will point you to like a web page or whatever saying like, hey, you might want to call your doctor and check on this. Theoretically,
That's
hopefully you should have gotten to knowing about this bad drug interaction before you get to the point of your watch telling you about it. I would hope your doctors wouldn't put you on that case, but it gives you a little bit more control over your health, and it works well with the other new feature, which brings us back to iOS a little bit, which is that the iPhone Health app is getting health profiles where you can
Mhm.
put in all your health information and your medications and stuff, and then share it with other people. So, say you have an elderly parent, um, they can put all the meds they need to take into their watch, into their phone app rather, and then put in the medication reminders to take it when, and then they can share their profile with you, and you can get a reminder saying, hey, your mom hasn't taken her morning meds yet, and you can get on your phone and call your mom and say, take your meds, and she'll say, I used to make you take your meds. You watch your mouth with me, kid, but whatever. I think it's funny that like your watch is going to tell you to sass your parents, but
I love that though, because the fact of the matter is that, you know, it's hard being a caretaker as
mhm,
it is with like everything else that we have to do. And just even this is where I think technology really helps us, and where this is when we talk about technology being useful. I just need something to remind me, or something that will log something for me when I cannot be there to do it physically. And so I like
mhm,
this because, yeah, I wanna know that a loved one is taking their meds when they're supposed to, and I need to know, like, if they, I don't know, have an episode or something, then I have a log to understand why they came to this, instead of me having to, like, try and pry it out of them, sort of thing. And so, I know it seems invasive from the top down, but
mhm.
again, caretaking is a really hard job, and
Yeah.
it's emotionally strenuous as well. And so this is where technology can really help kinda alleviate some of the burden, quite
We
frankly.
should point out, going back to our Roe v. Wade episode from a little bit back,
Yeah.
to always be careful with which health information you put out there. You never know what courts will do with information that is publicly available, or that is private but can be seized through whatever means. But in a perfect world, which is not the one we live in, but in a perfect world, this is a really good utility, I think.
Mhm. I agree. I
Speaking of
agree.
a perfect world, iPadOS is going to become a slightly less imperfect world. Right, Flo?
I thought you were gonna jump to macOS Ventura, to which I was gonna say, "Have you been to Ventura?" It's I don't
I
know
have
about
not
perfect.
been to Ventura.
JK.
I am full New York, Flo. If you can see behind me, I California is far from a perfect world for me, but I know you are full California.
I have driven through Ventura, which it's always interesting to me what they name their operating systems after, but we'll get to that right
Hmm.
after the iPadOS 16 bits, which I think the big thing here is multitasking features, as I mentioned before. The big one that's coming through is Stage Manager. Now, this is a little bit different from, I think it's called Sidecar, which lets you set up the iPad as sort of like a little,
Like a
extended
secondary
monitor of sorts.
monitor for your
Mhm.
laptop or whatever.
Yeah, what Stage Manager actually does is it lets you separate windows between the iPad and an external display. I'm assuming they mean an external Apple display for the most part. But Stage Manager pretty much lets you create overlapping windows of different sizes. This is a big deal for the iPad because previously it was very difficult to multitask in a way that felt fluid, I should say. Because you can always theoretically multitask on these tablets like you could on Android as well, but it is not a fluid experience. It's very weird. And so this kind of brings it a little closer to that laptop experience. And some people might say, "Oh, well, why doesn't the iPad just run Mac OS?" To which I say,
Have you tried running Windows on a Windows tablet? It's a
"I have.
nightmare. It only just slightly got better with
I
Windows
have.
11. I do not want to run a laptop or desktop app operating system on my tablet.
I agree. I agree. Plus, let's not forget how like resource intensive Mac OS is, because it's for film editing and audio editing and, screenplay editing, all the
Mhm.
all the all the things you do. And you could
Now
do
with like
that with the iPad as well.
yeah, the iPad Pro is trying to become more of like a hybrid work device and kind of like a laptop replacement in a lot of ways, which is why I see people wanting Mac OS on it. But at the very least, Stage Manager lets you finally window apps now, right?
Hmm.
And like
Hmm.
resize them, which is the key reason why I think a lot of people wanted Mac OS on the things. You just quickly swap between different apps, which is the big thing that I do a lot when working. I have 2 apps open right now, being my recording software and then Google Docs for our show notes. It's a little behind the scenes.
I have a lot of windows open right now. Very
There's so
precariously
many
placed in my Windows
tabs. Don't worry
documents.
about it. If we're getting
One,
into tabs, I don't
I
wanna
know.
divulge.
It gets bad in my tabs. Speaking of actually, I don't know if any tabs are involved in this. I was just trying to segue, which is that if you use your iPad for serious work, any collaboration, whether you're like planning a wedding or you are, let's say, a graphic designer and you're working on something with a client, now you can use messages to help you do that in real time. And what's interesting about this, so messages will let you bring in files, keynote files, numbers, pages, notes, reminders, and Safari tabs. There's a tab mention. And what's interesting about this is the concept of using Apple Messages to get work done. This is something that we forget people are doing behind the scenes. And I think Apple's really leaning into it and just kind of making it available. So FaceTime is turning into Google Meet.
So you were talking about Mac OS Ventura. Stage Manager is a good segue to that because Stage Manager is also coming to Mac OS Ventura. But I think it's a little less exciting there, given that you have, the traditional Mac OS Windows experience there.
Mhm.
But we're getting a new MacBook as well, a new MacBook Air and a new MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro is going to have the same design, but the MacBook Air has a completely new design. And they are both going to have the new M2 chip from Apple. We're moving even further beyond. We've had M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, M1 Ultra, M1 Super Saiyan Ultra Instinct Blue Evolve. No, I'm kidding. And now we've just decided to get rid of all those silly adjectives and move on to the M2. And the big device that is debuting the M2 is the new MacBook Air, which is coming with a brand new redesign that Phil Tracy, our honorary Dujet, went hands on with. It's going to come in 2 colors, basically gray and white, although they have their own individual names for it. Let me see if I can find it. Starlight and Midnight.
I
So
love it.
that's fun. And then it is going to get rid of the wedge that MacBook Airs have. It's going to have a flat bottom, which I don't mind because I think the wedge makes it kind of hard to open the device, and it makes it actually
Mm,
like if you hold it up against you, it kind of pokes into you a little bit, but it does mean that your keyboard won't be angled. But all of this is a big distraction
mm.
from the big thing, which is that the new MacBook Air is going to have a notch. Just like the, I believe, 14-inch MacBook
Yes.
Pro, it's moving from a 13.3-inch screen to a 13.6-inch screen. And with that comes a notch for the webcam that hangs out in your little activity top bar thing. Phil and I had a conversation about this behind the scenes. I don't know how you feel about it, Flo, but I am not a big fan of notches on laptops. I would rather have a thicker bezel. I know it's technically more real estate, but it's so distracting to me. And if I do have something, occasionally the notch will cover up what you need to something you need to access in your menu bar or whatever. Or I saw in a comment, if you have 2 overlapping apps, the notch will cover up, the parts of the windows that meet. And it's really annoying to me, but mostly it's just like really visually distracting. And I would give up some screen real estate to get rid of that notch. What do you think, Flo? What do you think about
Well,
notches?
coming from the land of Android phones with the camera hole right in the middle of the screen, I would say no thank you to the notch as well. You know what's funny is I have this Dell XPS that I love and I use every single day for a majority of the day. I would not trade it for anything else. I have no idea if it has a notch or not. I've never opened it. Because I always use it docked. I don't work remotely anymore. I'm just here at home all the time.
You
I don't
you
even know
have
if
a
it has a
desktop,
notch.
is what you're saying, Flo.
I have a desktop that takes no space. Yes, it's great.
Mhm.
It's great. And doesn't heat up my feet and burn them off.
Um, but
Right?
what I would love to see instead of a notch, and this is maybe a pie in the sky idea, is there is a new XPS 13 actually that has, instead of a notch, it has the webcam bump on top of the screen. So it goes like flat, 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 whoop, flat, 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 flat. And so
Yeah,
instead
see?
of notching down into the screen, the webcam pokes up. I imagine that adds some cost to manufacturing and makes it harder to fit in bags. But I don't think I
Yeah,
would
this notch is
mind the
weird though.
option. And I don't
Michelle,
think
you're
other
right.
people would mind the option. But another option would be, like a pop-up webcam that's like adds a little bit of width to the lid, and then you just like press a button and it
They
pops
did
up, but
they
that's
did that
maybe too
on
cutesy.
the OnePlus 7, I think, and it was silly.
That
It was
sounds
silly.
silly,
Every time
but
it
it's
came out, it'd
not
be
as
like, "Bzzz,
it's not as silly
bzzz."
as the other new feature that they're adding for both iPhone and Mac working together, which is you can now use your iPhone when it comes out. They're planning to let you use your iPhone as a webcam replacement. You can buy a mount to attach to the top of your MacBook,
That's
and then you can
amazing.
put your iPhone on that mount, and then you can use your iPhone's camera as your webcam. Naturally, your computer will read it that way when it's attached. And that's a feature that I actually really like. It's a feature that you can use external apps for right now, but having it built in will be great because phone cameras are by far so much better than anything that's going to be built into your
I
laptop.
know.
It's going to add a lot of weight to your laptop lid, so you'll want to make sure it doesn't fall over. It's not something that I would leave on top of your laptop all the time, but you're going to get a lot of increased picture quality there without having to spend any extra, assuming you own an iPhone. So of course they're trying to, extend their ecosystem there. It'd be great if they extended that to Android, but we don't live in that world, I guess.
I think there are third-party apps anyway that'll make that
There
happen.
there are definitely
Yeah.
third-party apps. It's just like, your parents probably aren't going to bother to use a third-party app or whatever. But this is interesting to me because there are fancy webcams out now right now with like post processing software that try to emulate a
I'm
smartphone
using one
camera.
now. I'm
I
using
think
one
that
now.
the Opal
Sorry.
C1 is one that I reviewed back in another site. No worries. And it comes with like an on webcam processor from Intel and tries to like basically be a smartphone camera that you attach to your computer, but it's $300 and the software is
Okay, I
like a
don't have that
subscription
one.
plan.
I just have a
Uh
Logitech Brio.
yeah. So this is an option to get that sort of smartphone like camera quality without spending extra on a super advanced smartphone. We've been talking a lot here, so we should move into the next section. But before that, we should also talk about this new MacBook Air. Fairly impressive. Phil really liked it. He said, honestly, go for it instead of the Pro because they're both going to be using the same chip, which is the Apple M2 chip. The Apple M2 chip comes with 5 nanometer technology, which I believe is the same thing the M1 used. It has an 8-core CPU, up to 10-core GPU, but it's promising. I'm looking it up right now, going through Phil's thing. It's promising support for up to 24 gigabytes of LPDDR4 RAM, which is up from 16 gigabytes on the previous chip. And it's promising about a 30% power increase. This is interesting to see because we saw in leaks before the show that they weren't expecting Apple to announce the M2 because they were going to be stuck on the same uh, nanometer process as the M1, so they weren't expecting a big power increase. Obviously, we'll have to wait to get the chip in hand in order to see it, but no, Apple's going right ahead forward with its new naming scheme. And it seems like it's somehow getting a ton more power out of a chip that is physically fairly the same. The thing that impressed me the most about the chip is they actually brought out Capcom at WWDC, and they said you can play Resident Evil Village
I saw
native
that.
on the new MacBook at 1080p flawlessly, and on the Mac Studio native at 4K. I believe that uses Metal 3 upscaling to achieve that. So it's not like pushing out the graphics at 1080p or 4K, which makes sense because you don't have a dedicated discrete GPU on here. You have integrated graphics. But it still looked pretty good in the video. I did notice that it looked a little bit like a mobile game as opposed to like the proper PC version. But I'm curious to see how this comes out. Flo, you're a Resident Evil Village fan. What did you think?
Honestly, I played the Resident Evil Village trial on Stadia
Mm-hmm.
because I ended up spending my money on Elder Scrolls Online. We'll talk about that in another video cast another day because I was having some fun over the weekend. But it's you should be able to just pop into the latest game on a Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Like you shouldn't have to build a whole new PC just to be able to
These
like jump
systems
into a
are
AAA
so
game.
powerful. There's no
Because that's
reason.
exactly, if you're asking me to edit an entire Hollywood film on a bunch of Macs, then why can I not jump into the latest game that people are talking about? And at the very least, now, like as an aside, with all this cloud gaming infrastructure that's getting built out, and you know, being able to just have a computer that can let you pop into that and pop out. That's, if you're already spending so much money on these things, they should be able to do it. And now for my favorite part, where I get to talk about all the things that Android users had first. Okay. But in
Of
all
course.
seriousness, in all seriousness, I did notice a lot of similarities between some of the things I've already been using on Android and some of the things that were announced. But as I mentioned earlier in our podcast, there were also things that I was like, huh, why didn't Google do that with Material You? So, yes, lock screen widgets. Apple announced it, but the difference is that Androids don't look as polished as Apple's does. In the previews that they showed us, like just the ability to be able to, I think there was like this cool little bokeh effect or blurring effect. I don't know. It's a portrait effect, right? To kind of like make your photo stand out. And I know people who have their cats and their kids as their wallpaper are going to love this because it brings
I
the
have my
focus
cat
in.
as my wallpaper.
And mine, rest in peace would be too, if she was still here. The only reason my kid is not is because I pay for all these really pretty wallpapers from this one artist. So I feel like I should probably get my money's worth out of those. No offense to my kid, but she is a money pit. We are seeing, like, between Android 12 and Android 13, Google's been talking about like fixing all this stuff with Material You, letting you do a little more customization, but it feels like iOS 16 is going to kind of blow us out of the water with that already. So Apple knows its aesthetics and what its people want, and I've always appreciated that about them. Also, the shared photo libraries. Now, this is for iCloud users. This is going to be great for families and friends who are sharing albums. I think you can add up to, I think it was 6 people I was reading. I may have to issue in a correction later, but I recognize it was not a big number. Right now on Google Photos, I think I have about 20 people in an album that's just photos of Mona. So
Aw. I was surprised to see this come up because I'm like, really? That hasn't been a thing that they have already?
I
I
know.
don't use iCloud for photos or what. I don't use iCloud at all. So, um, yeah, a lot of these features that they announce, I'm always like, that should have been a thing from the start, right? I think you have another thing to discuss about that later on, so I'll let you continue. But
Well, I will say I am using iCloud, by the way, to do my 3rd backup. So right now I'm doing,
oh,
excuse me, 4th backup. So I'm doing Photos, Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, which I pay into. God, I pay for so much. And now I'm paying for iCloud. So We're
So
we're making
Mona
sure all the
really is
photos
a
are backed
money
up.
pit.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't lose those photos, right? I
Mhm.
need to see her.
Aw.
Watch free fitness. That was something that we mentioned earlier. So you're not going to need your Apple Watch to roam around town. All you will need is your iPhone with iOS 16, and it will still track your walks. Excuse me. It'll still track your walks, track your workouts. This is also just a really great way to sell the Apple Fitness subscription.
Mhm.
So that's kind of fun. I will say Samsung has tried to do this with Samsung Health for its respective watches, and not in the same vein. I think I would much rather hop into an Apple Fitness class. I have not really tried the Samsung Fitness classes, but they seem to be pulled like from YouTube. I don't know.
I
I don't
didn't
know.
realize I never think of Samsung as a content creator.
You would
Apple
be
on
correct.
it, it's
You would be
odd to see
correct with
Apple
that
being seen as
inclination.
a content creator too, but Apple TV and honestly the
Exactly.
WWDC conference also looked really nice. They know how to make things that are interesting for people to watch.
Exactly. Speaking of making things interesting, Apple Maps now has multi-stop support. Welcome.
Woo! I
Welcome.
have been using Apple Maps lately, Flo. I've been using them because on my Apple Watch, Apple Maps lets me see a little mini map of like the world around me when I'm going somewhere, whereas Google Maps on the Apple Watch, its app just wants to give you like a list of your directions. And sometimes I need to be able to see, the streets around me to orient myself first. So I this is my very first time really using Apple Maps seriously.
Hmm.
But I guess I'll take this as a begrudging acceptance. The instant though that Google Maps becomes more usable on Apple Watch, though, I'm ditching Apple Maps.
We should do a head to head because I'm actually really curious. I am so annoyed using maps on my Samsung watch.
Oh
That's
yeah.
really interesting. But it's also because again, we in the pandemic, I haven't been commuting or like taking the train into the city. I've just been driving, just because I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to deal with people right now. And I would love to be able to look at maps on my watch just
Mm-hmm.
kind of easily. So, looks like we got some things to look forward to. Dictation, punctuation, and emojis. Those of you who use dictation to yell at people, now you can add emojis as you yell at them. So this is good. But this is something that was already on Google Dictation.
I don't yell at people, but I do dictate. I was in the hallway the other day, like on my watch, telling my boyfriend, like, "Hey, do you want to order pizza?" And then I noticed that I had a coworker behind me, and I'm like, "Oh, I look ridiculous right now." But
It's in the cabinet behind the cereal. No, I just
the,
I
the
did
the
that the
worst
other day
part
too.
is it's like if you're talking like normal words, it's fine, but it's like, "Hey, comma, do you want to order pizza?" question mark. That makes you sound ridiculous. So I can imagine also saying like kissy face emoji on top of that would be a lot, but
Okay, extremely quick digression, but there was a couple of Real Housewives of New York seasons ago. There was a whole cheating scandal, as there always is with these people. And there was a whole scene where one of the housewives is yelling into Apple Dictation, like, "How could you do this to me?" question mark. And it is
mhm.
like solidified in my brain as just like, this is exactly what it's like when you have an emotional situation and you're just trying to dictate into your phone some emotions. So,
Did you mean how could you uh do gong the Pokemon? I don't know. It's just I imagine like having to deal with typos while also in that situation.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of typos, Apple Mail
Mhm.
is bringing some of Google Inbox's killed features. Granted, some of those features were eventually integrated into Gmail, but I couldn't help but think about long lost gone Google Inbox when Apple was talking about just like the ability to schedule messages, get priority messages, all really helpful things, and all features that were added to encourage you to stick within the Apple ecosystem for not only play but also work. So, very strategic on their part. And then lastly, I wanted to bring up, we've been talking about there being evidence of the always on display in iOS 16. This is something that came after the keynote that we've been reading about in blogs. And y'all, I've been using this on Android for a long time. And I'm going to tell you, it's actually not all that it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, can I ask why? Because I can imagine it's just eating up your battery life
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Mhm.
Samsung figured out a way. I will give credit to Samsung that they're always on display. It's very low. And because they have OLED, they're able to get to like that very, very low without using power. It's a little more overt on the Google Pixels and some of the other manufacturers that don't use OLED displays. I don't know. Again, the best thing it's for is to be able to look at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah.
that was the big killer app for the Apple Series 7 watch too. It's just like, oh, it has an always on display. But I'm like, or I could just like do this and the watch
Yeah. Or
wakes,
I
like
could
no
just
problem
go,
like that.
what time is it?
Or I could just have a meat watch, you know.
Mhm.
That's another
Or I could look at
one
the
of these
wall.
yeah. One of these days I'm gonna double watch it with like a smartwatch on one hand and like a analog watch on the other hand, and I'll be like a Power Ranger or whatever. Or I guess this is the Wakanda for
You know, I actually do that sometimes with my
oh my
Tamagotchi
gosh.
Smart.
Flo, you have to tell me about this. We gotta add in a quick let's fan at the end here.
Yes, so the Tamagotchi Smart is technically a smartwatch for like 6-year-old wrists, but now you can buy different watch bands for it.
Mm.
And I'm waiting right now for some new Tama Smart cards to come in before I do an order from Japan because paying for the shipping is expensive and
What
I
is
need to
smart
justify it.
about this Tamagotchi? Can it play your podcasts? Can it send mail?
It cannot send mail. It cannot play podcasts. It's only called that because you can wear it as a smartwatch if you want. And
Beautiful.
yeah, I love it. I love it. I've been playing with another Tamagotchi, which is why I haven't been wearing it. But sometimes because it has a pedometer on it, I like to have the my steps logged, not only on my watch, but also on my Tamagotchi. So I'll like wear both of them and I'll go out and I'll just be like double wielding it. I'm sorry I don't have it right now to show as a visual aid, but
Mhm.
maybe Artem can help us out with a little overlay to kind of show what it
You know,
looks
you
like.
showed me that they're doing that for Digimon as well, and they actually look like pretty nice and stylish
We
too.
should call you one
Um
in. I want you to test it out. I really do. Everyone, I found out that Michelle, when she first started here, I think you've been here for like a couple months now.
Mhm.
You told me you were into Digimon and got very excited because of the relation to my Tamagotchi world because they're
Yep.
both by Bandai,
Mhm.
and Digimon was sort of released as the I don't agree with this, but in the 90s it was released as the boy version
Boys,
of
yeah. And
boys
they look like these,
Tamagotchi.
like, gross, like, you know, Rob Liefeld Marvel heroes, and they've got the
Yeah.
jorts and the guns and stuff, but I love how silly they get, and, like,
I
the
wear
anime
jorts.
it's yeah. The anime itself is, like, a better story than Pokemon or whatever, but,
Shots fired. Shots fired.
the games, Pokemon has the better games, Digimon has the better anime. That's my hot take, and I will not defend from it. Beelzemon is my husbando, but I do like Digimon, and to the two people there who understand what I meant when I said Beelzemon, you live right here. Okay.
See, this is why people come to Gadgettes because
Mhm.
somehow we start talking about like the week's news and it devolves into what is the fandoms we've also been distracting ourselves with.
Mhm. Well,
So,
we cut the proper Let's Fan segment. Every episode we try to do like a fangirl segment at the end from this show. For time, but you can check in next week to see a full length Let's Fan segment. We'll figure out what we're actually going to talk about then. Probably Star Wars or some nonsense. But
I
before
really
next
want to
week,
talk to you about Obi-Wan. So we might have
Obi-Wan.
to do that.
We might have just figured out our topic. But for this week, before we go, we would like to thank our producer and editor, Artem Golub, for making us look beautiful. And we'd also like to thank our cover designer, Vicky Lita, for making our beautiful podcast album art. Let me show off more of it right here. Listeners can email us at gadgets@gizmodo.com with any questions or opinions or compliments. You can also tweet us at Gizmodo, and you can find us on our social media profiles. Mine is Shell Earhart on Twitter, Chelle, and then my last name. You can find my byline and go from there. Flo, what's your handle?
I'm that Flow and all the social medias, and do check me out on TikTok as well if you're interested in the Tamagotchi stuff I've been playing with. I've been posting about the new Tamagotchi Pix Party over there, which I have a press version of. So
Mhm. And here is where we would tell you to subscribe to us. But now I'm going to say, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Gizmodo YouTube channel. We post full episodes there as
Mhm.
well as clips. And you can also find our clips on gizmodo.com proper. We're building out a whole video expansion to the site that we're very excited to show off soon, and we're happy to be a part of. Until next time, thanks for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode of Gadgettes. Bye, everyone.